Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and welcome back to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We definitely want to welcome you back to another episode of the Snob OS Show. This is episode 283 of the show. As per usual, we always want to thank all of our fans, all of our supporters for supporting us thus far. If you want to become a financial supporter, help us keep the lights on, please go to patreon.com/snoboscast. Show us some love there. And in return, you'll get access to the show early. You'll get access to our live stream so you can chat with us while we're recording. And you get access to our Discord community. So please go to patreon.com/snoboscast to show us some love financially. And we definitely want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for supporting us thus far. So we're going to get right into the show. Some of the things on the docket. We're going to talk about Apple being back on top as far as the best company for customer satisfaction. I got a new company that's willing to take over the Apple Card. Apple pulls iPad OS 18, iOS 18 patches, some security vulnerabilities. Got a new YouTube hype leaderboard that helps out smaller channels. And we're going to break down these Diddy freak offs. I thought that was pretty interesting, the details that came out of this indictment. So we're going to get into all that. But as per usual, we always start with the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. Like I mentioned, Apple is back on top for customer satisfaction. There is a American Satisfaction Index, and Apple regains the crown as the sole winner. The discussion, well, I'm sorry, let me get to the right one. In 2023, Samsung broke Apple's 20-year streak of winning first place in the American Customer Satisfaction Index for personal computers by forcing a tie. This year, Apple has returned to ruling the category while HP won second, knocking Samsung down a notch. So basically, this is just for personal computers, which I'm surprised. There are some people who love Macs. There's some devoted fans of Mac computers, but by far and large, the majority of computers on this earth are PCs. So I'm surprised that Apple is able to stay on top as far as personal computers. Now, if you're talking about wearables, you're talking about mobile devices, you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about tablets, you're talking about the whatever service, streaming services, I would
Mm-hmm.
assume those will push Apple across the top. But the fact that they're just talking about personal computers, while Apple has a small percentage of the marketplace, it seems like there are people out there who love them regardless. So
Yeah,
what do you think your take on it is?
I'm thinking that people maybe have started to appreciate quality over quantity because, again, PCs are by and large, especially during like Black Friday, holiday shopping, get you, an HP for like $200-$300.
Mhm,
And I know, I have members in my family who consistently, almost every year during Black Friday, they get a new laptop, or at least
mhm,
every other year, they get a new laptop. And I'm like, if you add up all of the Black Friday laptops that you're buying and just invest the money in getting a Mac that
mhm,
undoubtedly lasts a lot longer. I mean, behind me, I have a 2008 MacBook Pro.
mhm.
Boots up, still works fine. Of course, some of the OS updates, it's updated, to where
As
as far
much
as
as it
it'll
can.
go, as much as
Yeah.
you can. But if something were to happen and my M2 goes down, I have something at least I can use until I get my primary driver back up. And
Mhm.
I don't know if this is the case, but I think people may have started to realize that the quality that they're going to get from an Apple laptop by and large is going to be not only a better using experience, but you got to get more longevity out of it. And
Yeah.
that's really the only thing I could potentially assume is the difference because, again, people, sometimes they can be cheap and they don't want to spend the money on the device, but then when they get it and it's like, oh, this isn't great, it goes too slow. I have my aunt, my grandma, and my mom always, I got viruses on my computer, how do I get them off? And I'm like, one, quit clicking on links and emails that you don't know where they're from. That's
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
2, stop downloading just random stuff. And 3, you're on a pretty crappy machine.
Right.
Sure, it
Pretty
costs
cheap.
you $349.99 during Black Friday, but you're gonna get a $349.99
Right.
product out of that. So you gotta adjust the expectations if you're gonna continue, to buy a PC, that's more affordable or easily acceptable as compared to something that has a higher price tag but has a bigger quality.
Yeah, and Imma just go through some of these categories for this, customer satisfaction index: website satisfaction, availability of software or apps, design, the visual appeal, graphics and sound quality, ease of operation, processor speed, availability of accessories, ability to keep system crashes to a minimum, features, operating system, quote unquote, preloaded software, apps, memory, data storage. And then the last one is call center satisfaction. So those are all the categories that they use to rate or come out with these, who's the best as far as customer satisfaction.
Mhm.
And for most of these, Apple does a pretty good job. You could say individual companies that make PCs or Windows computers, like Lenovo and Sony and Samsung is a popular one. Dell is
Mhm.
another popular one. But I don't think people split out those as much as, well, not as much as, because you can't split out a Mac because a Mac is a Mac, right? But I think people don't see Windows computers and those individual
As a
manufacturers
brand, they just see a
as a
PC.
separate. They see
Yeah,
a PC, right?
yeah. They see
So
a
if they
Windows machine.
right, and if
They
they
don't
have a
really see a
problem,
brand.
and if they have a problem with the Windows machine, whichever brand is on the badge is the one they got a problem with, right?
Right.
When in actuality, it may not be the brand's problem that you're having problems with the PC, so that maybe brings down, or it weighs a little bit more on some of these other companies than with a Mac. So,
No, for sure.
all right, go ahead. Are you gonna say
I was
something
just
else,
saying for
or?
sure. No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, all right, so that was that on that one. We're going to move to this next one. We've talked about this before, to where Goldman Sachs has had some problems with the Apple credit card. What's the word? Partnership for the
Mhm.
past couple of years. So much so that they have decided, all right, y'all got a year or two. I forget how much the time frame is, but they're like, we're out. So
Mhm.
Apple has been shopping for a new bank to take over from Goldman Sachs, and it looks like JP Morgan is in talks.
Hmm.
I'm not saying they have ironed out
Signed on the
an
dotted
agreement,
line. Yeah.
but JP Morgan's is in talks. The discussions started earlier this year and have advanced in recent weeks, but any potential deal could still be months away, said the source, who asked not to be named, yada yada yada.
Mhm.
Goldman and Apple reportedly pulled the plug last year of their partnership, like we mentioned, which included credit cards and the savings account, which is that high yield savings.
Mhm.
Goldman is facing a costly exit from the partnership that is seen by other lenders as too risky and unprofitable. So
Hmm.
that's the thing that JP Morgan probably is going to make sure they are all in agreement before they move forward with this partnership, because according to, like I said, Goldman Sachs, they were like, we got a raw deal and we
Mhm.
want out. Forget the fact that they're Apple, forget the fact that people love Apple products. A credit card is a credit card, and there are people that are going to they're not good financially literate stewards. So the stories I saw was, they were Goldman Sachs was upset that so many people were trying to you know um, claim fraud and all these charge offs. And they were like, hey, wait a minute, we didn't sign up for all this. So my suggestion
Hmm.
to JP Morgan is like, hey, make sure you iron out some of these deals before you go forward, because you don't want to be like another Goldman Sachs is salty.
Yeah, and I find it interesting because the things that they're listing as issues aren't things that are not they aren't uncommon with other credit card companies.
Right, right.
So I'm interested to see, really what Goldman Sachs what they expected, because just like any other credit card company, whether it's Amex,
Mhm.
whether it's Chase,
Discover. Yeah.
Discover, Mastercard, whatever, these are reasonable issues that all credit card companies um, have.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if they, meaning Goldman Sachs, didn't do their due diligence
Quite possibly.
as to what actually owning a credit card company really is, because I think they're more on the banking mortgage side of things, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. So it sounds like to me that Goldman Sachs overinflated and possibly didn't do enough research into what they were actually buying, because
Right.
their complaints don't seem that far off from what goes on with, basically any other credit card company.
Yeah, and it could just be that they were fed up with consumers because, according to the story, it says Goldman Sachs refocuses on investment banking, trading after consumer banking losses. So it sounds like they was just fed up
They're like, "We
with
wanna get out of
consumer
consumer
banking.
side. Let's get out of
Right,
consumer." Yeah,
right. I don't know if
and that makes
Apple.
sense. That I understand.
I don't know if that was a straw that broke the camel's back. I don't know if that was just something they had always been dealing with, and they tried to last ditch effort to partner with Apple, and it returned the same yields, and they were like, "All right, we're done."
Yeah, I
So
honestly, it sounds like to me that, somebody didn't do their research, into the type of business that they were buying, because, again, this doesn't sound too shocking.
right. All right. Next up on the docket is Apple pulls iPad OS 18 from the M4 iPad Pros. Now, these are the
Mm,
iPad Pros that just came out earlier this year. You would assume, with the most powerful chip that Apple has to offer in a tablet, you would assume that downloading iOS 18 would be, quote unquote, as the kids say, light to work. That
light.
is not the case. um, Apple stopped signing the iPad OS 18 update for the M4 iPad Pro models, which means the new software is no longer available to be downloaded and installed at the current time. The update appears to have been pulled following complaints from some iPad Pro owners who found that the update bricked their devices. Again,
Yikes.
these are Reddit reports, these are, people on social media. So, as per usual, Apple doesn't want to be flippant. In the past, they have been flippant when
Mhm.
it comes to some of the consumers' responses. So now they're like, all right, well, we need to tread water a little bit closer, and we need to take some of these concerns seriously, whether they are reported directly to us or not. So let's go ahead and stop signing this and figure out what's going on and how to push this iPad OS 18 back out, because I'm pretty sure it's coming back up. I'm reading this update real quick. It says Apple has provided Mac Rumors, where I found this story, with the following statement: "We have temporarily removed iPad OS 18 update for M4 iPad Pro models as we work to resolve an issue that is impacting a small number of devices." So Apple is wants to come off as responsive, and they want to come off as, all right, we care about your concerns. So, and probably did the math and said, ain't that many people got the new M4 iPad Pro anyway.
Mhm.
So let's just go ahead and pause this download until we figure out a fix.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me, of the good old days of upgrading your device back when we had to do it through iTunes,
Mm-hmm.
and you would just sit there and pray to God that the new update wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
brick your phone,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we've all probably had those nightmare
Sure.
situations where you're doing the upgrade, everything's going, the next thing you know, screen's
Mm-hmm.
black, you just have the Apple logo and you're like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And God forbid you didn't back up before, you were just totally screwed. So it's kind of giving flashbacks of the olden days, when we had to update devices, and the biggest concern was, is this going to completely brick my machine, and am I going to be completely screwed? So I guess it's good they pulled it before any more devices got impacted. And it's interesting because, again, Friday is new Apple device day. And I was like, I have to go into the Apple store to pick up my new phone and my new watch. And I was kind of waffling between, do I want to get a new iPad 2? Do I want to go ahead and pull the trigger and get the new over the ears? But I think this just kind of made my decision easier to leave the iPad where it is for now until they figure
Well,
out what's going on with it. So,
Well, it depends, right? Because this story says not all M4 iPad Pro owners have had this issue installing an update. And it could be, this is just the poster or the author speculating,
Hmm.
it could be linked to installing the new iOS 17.7 update before installing iOS update. So basically, I'm not sure how they're saying this, but it sounds like the iPad Pro owners who stepped up and then installed the
Instead
17.7
of just going
update.
straight to 18.
Right. I'm hoping I think that's how I'm reading this correctly. They upgraded in steps. They did the
Hmm.
17.7 and then they went to 18, like you said, instead of just leapfrogging that 17.17 update. And maybe that's what bricked it. Um, so all
Because
I
I,
was saying was, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I was just say I will say when Monday when the new OS dropped,
Hmm.
my initial plan was to upgrade the to move up to iOS 18 to only devices that I wasn't replacing. And then just do the step up for the devices that I was replacing because my thought was, oh, I want to see all the new stuff on my new phone. I don't want to see it on my old stuff. I want to see it on my new stuff. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and upgrade everything. It'll probably make it easier to migrate over to my new devices. And what I will say is when I went to update my iPad Pro, I don't have an M4 iPad Pro,
Hmm.
but the current iPad Pro that I have, I went to update to iOS and I clicked on it and it looked like it was going through the process, but instead of 18, it did 17.7
On its own.
on its own
Hmm.
because they have the main screen that has the
Hmm.
17.7 and it has at the bottom on the little sliver it says or it says also available iOS 18 uh
18.
18 and I
Hmm.
clicked on it. I clicked on the little bar and that's what I thought I was upgrading, but I don't know what happened, but it did the 17.7, so I had to go and do the 18 on top and I was really concerned. I was like, "Oh crap, is this going to cause problems?"
Right.
Because of, it can be very tense. Again, flashbacks from when things got bricked before was because the 17.7 is essentially for people who don't want to go to 18.
Right.
Is there going to be some sort of conflict if you do these back to back? But I
Right.
was like, YOLO, I'm just gonna do it anyway and see what happens. I took a backup before, so I was like, I'm good. I'll just have to go through it. But it went through fine, other than the fact that it did the 17.7 when I was trying to do 18.
Right. Yep. So if you're out there and you've got an M4 iPad Pro, you may want to do that logical step before jumping to 18. I think I skipped 17.7 on my stuff, my iPhone and my iPad Pro. I have an iPad Pro as well, but it's not the M4. And I think I updated just fine with no issues. So it could just be luck of the draw for
Yeah.
some of these people experiencing these issues. But at the same time, Apple, like I mentioned, wants to remain uh, that they're concerned. So they went ahead and paused it. And also issued iOS 17.7. Like you mentioned, there are some
Yeah.
people who don't like to jump to the big updates and they want to wait until 18.1 or 18. Whatever to where when these companies have quote unquote worked out the kinks, but they
Hmm.
want the security updates,
Yeah.
which is why people update to which is why Apple has, as of the
Both of
past three
them.
years, pushed out both of them, pushed out
Yeah.
a current OS with all the security patches, and then the new version that's supposed to have all the patches
Everything. Yeah.
plus the new version.
Yeah.
All right. So the last story, well, not the last story, second to last story in the lowdown is like we mentioned, there are, in addition to the new OS with all the new cool features, iOS 18 also is required if you don't want to get hacked, basically. Um, uh, Yeah, many of the iOS 18 patches up to 33 security vulnerabilities. Many of these vulnerabilities affect core components of the best iPhones from Bluetooth to Control Center. If exploited, they could be used to gain an unauthorized access to the data stored on your iPhone or even to completely take over the vulnerable devices. So, you have a choice. You can either go and update to iOS 18 to make sure you get all these security vulnerabilities, or like we mentioned, you can also update to iOS or iPadOS 17.7, which will give you those patches without the full iOS 18 experience. So just wanted to put that out there and make sure you update. So whether
Yes.
you're trying to update to get the features or not, update to something. Because
Yeah.
again, like we mentioned, you don't want some of these security vulnerabilities because we know y'all not out there doing your due diligence.
You're
So
not.
you
You're
might as well
reusing the same password for everything.
we know you're not. So might as well, do what you can automatically via Apple, you know. So yeah, so that's it for that story. We're going to move on to the last one. Like we mentioned a couple of for the past couple of stories, iOS 18 is out, and you mentioned that you did update. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to circle back with you and find out what are your favorite features that you've used so far from iOS 18 or iPad OS 18 or Mac OS, or out of all the updates, what have been your favorite features so far?
So far, I have to say the iPhone mirroring is pretty slick. I've played with it a little bit, but not a lot. I really, I normally don't do unboxing videos because I was like, I just want to open my stuff and start using it. I'd be a little
Yeah,
crazy. I don't do that.
yeah.
But what I think I'm going to try and do is use the mirroring and use, my bigger screen on my computer to kind of be like my viewfinder as I
Mhm,
do the unboxing. So I think I'm going to try that for the mirroring. Surprisingly, the RCS
mhm,
um, has been better than I thought, and I say that in the respect of I have people that I talk to, text with, who are Android users. And
mhm.
I've noticed that my experience with using the RCS is a lot better. I can see the bubbles. Of course, it's still green, but I can see the bubbles in their typing.
Mhm.
A lot of times I've had issues with text not going through and having to
Oh,
do
wow.
the send as gives you the message send as text or text it and go through. I'm not seeing really any of that with people that I normally get that message from. Most people I talk to have iPhones, but it's
Mhm,
been a positive benefit, I have to say, surprisingly. Um, that messaging with people who don't have iPhones is better. I still wish they'd be on iPhone because it makes it even simpler, but I digress. Not
mhm.
everybody likes iPhones. The new like nod your head, shake your head for the AirPods, that's kind of cool. I've used that a little bit.
Mhm,
That's kind of cool. And the password app, we just talked about some of you people not doing your updates, having it separate and not built into the settings app has been
mhm.
pretty cool as well. And
Right.
basically, the way they lay out, because in the previous version, you just click on passwords and just list all the passwords. But
Mhm.
in the password apps, it has things kind of separated. So it
Grouped
has
into
like
sections.
it groups into sections like your Wi-Fi passwords. Then it has like
Mhm,
it has like the different segments, which I think is a lot better as well. I haven't really played around too much with Sequoia. Um, but I have gotten the most use out of my iPhone and a little bit of my iPad as well. So I'm looking forward to getting the new phone and seeing how that really works, because I was really initially excited about the customization, because I saw some people's customization, they look pretty cool, especially like the gradient one.
mhm,
But what I found, maybe it's because I've gotten impatient, I didn't want to go through it, but I liked my current wallpaper, but I
mhm.
wanted to get the gradient icons like in one of the colors that's on the I basically
The
want to do the
wallpaper.
gradient right
Mhm,
off that wallpaper. And I was playing with it and it just wasn't working the way I wanted to. So I haven't really gotten, to use the customization the way I want. And I haven't decided, what icons I want on the home screen. So I'm still trying to decide
mhm,
what I use the most, what makes the most sense. So I haven't gotten the biggest benefit out of the customization because that was really the first thing that I want to do. Because, like I said, the gradient one was like, I was like, oh, this is cute. This gives me a nice little aesthetic. But I couldn't quite use my current background, my current wallpaper to get the gradient the way it was looking on the other one, on the the what do you call it, the example one that Apple did. And I was like, I don't really like this. And I was like, I got bored. I was like, I won't do that no more, so I'm gonna do something else.
Well, yeah. So, with the gradient thing, I've actually went in and did it, and you can actually drag it. The way it does, you do customize, and then on the far right side, there's a little ink drop
Mhm,
thing
mhm.
that you drag across your wallpaper to kind of match the color. I thought it comes out pretty nice. So yeah, so let me
So
just get into.
maybe I have to play that with that a little bit more because initially it did allow me to like do like the color, but it
Mhm.
was like a deeper, it was like a red that I didn't really want and I couldn't figure out how to get the lighter color. So, and by that time I was annoyed. So maybe
Yeah,
when I have a little bit more patience,
yeah.
I'll, do it.
There's a
The
little
little kind of like
eye
ink
drop.
dropper. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you drag that over the
To
color
pick
on
the
the current
color.
wallpaper, and
Gotcha.
it'll match it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so that was one of the things. The lock screen and wallpaper customizations. I actually dig that a lot. I took some time and found the right layout, and I actually moved the apps around to move them around the wallpaper image that I have,
So you
and
can
I
actually
actually
see the image.
so you can actually see the
Yeah.
image. For the lock screen, I took off the buttons at the bottom. You
Mhm.
know, when you go into the lock screen, there's the camera button and then there's the flashlight button. I took both of those off because I really
Which you
don't
can
use
actually
those,
customize too, right?
and put other ones on there. I took them
Yeah.
all off.
Like, no, nothing.
Yeah, so I actually took a lot of time and made the icons bigger and switched to the dark layout, and so I
The dark mode looks really good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Dark mode
I
looks really good.
Yep, so I did all that. So that's one of my favorite features. Another thing is I've been talking about this for years and years and years and years and years. They finally did it. Finally gave me the ability to create and view reminders in the calendar app. So when you open up the calendar app, in addition to just your events that you put on there, it shows you the reminders. If in fact you've put a date and a time on a reminder, if you just added a reminder, it's not going to show up in the calendar because it doesn't have a date, doesn't have a time. But the cool thing about this is you don't have, if I'm in the calendar app, I don't have to switch over to the reminders app to make a reminder. I can just select how I want this to show up. Do I want it to be a calendar event or do I want it to be a reminder? So I've used that a lot already. The iPhone mirroring on the Mac, I use that all the time now. It's like I just put my phone on the charger on the desk and I don't even have to reach for it anymore. As long
Mhm.
as the phone is locked,
Mhm.
and you've enabled the screen mirroring, you can on your Mac. Of course, you have to download Sequoia, but
Yeah.
in the dock, there's an iPhone mirroring. You click on it, opens your phone up in a little screen on your Mac, and you can use it too. I was using it for just today to post some videos on social media. And sometimes I don't feel like holding my phone because there's some things I like to do on my computer. I'm
Mhm.
from the generation to where there are iPhone things or there are smartphone things
And there are
and then
laptop
there are
things.
laptop things, right? I still have that attitude. So when
And
posting
Gen Z is
videos,
cooking us for that, but that's okay.
right. Like posting videos on social media, I'd much rather type on my keyboard. So I open up the iPhone mirroring. I would airdrop the picture that I found on the web onto my phone, and then immediately it would show up in the camera roll. I would put the picture, I would type it in on my computer, I would copy and paste, especially because I gotta put it on different social media platforms.
Mhm.
So trying to copy and paste text on your phone to copy it into another platform, a little bit too cumbersome. So
Yeah.
with this, the iPhone mirroring, I just click it open right now, play on my phone. The audio sounds the same, the video plays the same. The controls are a little tricky because you're using a mouse, or you're using a trackpad versus
Mhm.
using your thumb and your finger. So you got to get used
Mhm.
to that. Once you get used to that, I'm flipping through apps. I'm checking email on my computer. I'm
From your
in my
phone.
iPhone
Yeah.
checking my email, which is stupid. But there are some things that I do on my phone, and there are some things I do on my laptop. So
And
being
some
it, be
things you don't wanna have to pick up your phone to do because there's some
right,
things you have on your phone that you don't
hmm
have on your laptop, and now
right.
it basically merges the 2, and it just you don't have to pick up something else, you can just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep. And then to take it a step further, I think there are some apps to where for like the widgets
Mhm.
on your Mac with Sequoia, if you have your phone connected, you can actually put up those apps as a quote unquote app on your Mac, but it's just really just using the iPhone version of that
Of
app
it.
specifically
Ah.
for widgets. Like if there are widgets that you use on your phone that are not widgets on your Mac, the
Mhm.
ability to be able to pull those widgets in on your Mac and they look like a Mac widget, but
Mhm.
it's just pulling from your iPhone is pretty dope.
Cool.
The other thing I had is the dedicated passwords app. I co-sign your sentiments as far as that. I've been waiting on that for years. I finally, in addition to that, now that it's a dedicated thing and it's not just buried in the settings, they give you the ability to import passwords from your existing password manager. What I've been doing for the past year and a half is anytime I come to a website that I have to use my old password manager,
Mhm.
I would then stop
Migrating
what you're doing.
everything over.
Right. I would immediately stop what I'm doing. I would create that password in the passwords app, and then I would go and delete it out of my previous password manager. Now that they've added it as a dedicated standalone service, you can import via CSV file. So you have to export a CSV file, and then you can import that into the passwords app. Loads it up just fine. So now I can start the process of deleting or canceling that service because I'm
Yep.
already paying for iCloud plus Core One, whatever that thing,
Mhm.
whatever. I'm not trying to be redundant in the things that I
Yeah.
pay for. If I
Yep.
can build it into what I'm already paying for and cancel some stuff out, I'm doing it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's definitely a benefit for that. And then the Photos app overhaul. The probably the most glaring change in iOS 18 is the Photos app. You can go in there and customize and sort and filter and create almost like a brand new layout. There's some things that are
Mhm.
in some different locations. So there is a learning curve to using a new Photos
It
app.
was very jarring the first time I
hmm
opened it. I'm like,
hmm
"What the hell is this?"
Yeah, yeah. But after you just take some time and be in it, I
Yeah.
sat there for a couple hours just playing around with the different layouts, the different ways you can organize it. You can pretty much lay out the Photos app the way you want it based on all the different types. They've added a bunch of different categories or media types for photos. Like they've got screenshots in this own section. They've got let me see all these things. They've got screen recordings, screenshots, bursts, slow mo, and they've had a lot of the stuff prior to, but they've added some more categories as far as media types, and then you can actually customize how you want those to show up on the Photos app. And they've also at the bottom got that like recently deleted and hidden photos to where they make it a little bit easier to
Mhm.
get into your hidden and or deleted photos as well. So you definitely take some time to get in there and play with that Photos app. But once you learn the layout and once you learn the new functionality, pretty much a game changer in my opinion. So those are the favorite apps. I did like RCS, but I'm kind of like, that really wasn't phasing me. The green bubbles versus the blue bubbles. My family, my mom, my dad, my brother and sister, they all I think have Androids. So we have a group text, but it's just words. I'm
Mhm.
not getting fancy with tap backs and I'm not
Mhm.
doing thumbs up and I'm not putting smileys and emotions, emoticons and stickers. I ain't doing all that. I'm just texting you. So, I ain't doing all that. So, but I did test out. I do have a Google Pixel 6, I think, sitting in a drawer somewhere else. So I'm like, all right, let me dust that off. So I actually dusted that off and, tested some messages. And I think the people think the thing, like you mentioned, what people are going to see off the bat is I call it the typing. What is it called?
The
The
bubbles.
the bubble incoming bubbles.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that you notice off the bat
Mhm.
once you enable RCS. So we'll get to that a little bit later. I've got that as part of the hookup, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I did notice that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, yeah. So that's it. That's all I had. So let us know if you've downloaded iOS 18 or iPadOS 18 or anything else, and let us know what your favorite features are. All right, so that is going to do it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string, and I thought this was cool because I wouldn't call myself a YouTuber, but I do have some content. Well, yeah, I call myself a YouTuber between our show, between the Tech John, between my own YouTube page. I could be considered a YouTuber, but I don't have the thousands, 100,000s. I'm not
Mhm.
monetized and I don't have all that. Everything, my brand isn't built on whether or not YouTube works, right?
Right.
But there are a lot of people that are trying to get started, influencers, social making a living off of social media is the thing nowadays. So, but on the flip side, it is kind of hard to break into YouTube because everybody has a YouTube channel and there's
Yep.
so much content on YouTube. You can get lost, So I think YouTube is knows that and they have created this quote unquote YouTube Hype Leaderboard. And basically, what it is, Hype is an entirely new promotional system inside of YouTube. There's a new button for quote unquote hyping a video, and the most hyped videos will appear on a platform wide leaderboard. It's a bit like trending, but it's focused specifically on smaller channels
Hmm.
and on what people specifically choose to recommend rather than what they just watch. So basically, they're giving smaller creators that don't have the fan base the ability to where if they put out decent content and somebody likes it enough to where they actually hype it versus just doing a thumbs up, doing all the things that they tell you to do in the video, which drives
Mhm.
me crazy.
Put the link, ring the
Yeah.
bell,
Oh my
do the
God.
thing.
Drives me nuts. But anyway, for those smaller creators that have those smaller channels, you if you have good content, it can't just be crappy content. It's got to be
Right.
content that's good enough to where people watch and want to actually promote. YouTube is just giving you another way to hype up that channel. So I thought it was pretty dope that, coming from a smaller channel that they, they, they understand that people get lost in the sauce
Yeah.
and they're trying to figure out some ways to do it. Now, the question is going to be, are people are just going to hype up the popular channels anyway?
Mhm.
How my question is, how does YouTube really see a hype from a
Yeah.
smaller channel as different or equally as important as a hype from a already established million views or a video post that somebody puts out? Is there more or less? What actually goes in that outside of just a new way to do it?
If I were YouTube and I were one of their engineers, you have to build that into the algorithm. You
Hmm.
have to build into, if you're seeing hype versions, because say a platform that has only 100 viewers, but they
Right.
get 200 hypes,
Right.
that's huge.
Right.
Whereas, say, if you have a million followers and you get
100,000 or something.
100,000 hypes, that's not really a lot.
Right. Right.
So you have to, again, I mean, you don't have to, but if they're going to implement this hype program and expect it to be effective and to help content creators, you have
Hmm.
to build into the algorithm to take into account the subscriber size
Hmm.
as well as the number of hypes they're giving. And that way you can better inform the algorithm to ensure that it's still on par with some of the larger content creators. Otherwise, the smaller content creators will just get lower and lower and lower, even though they're, you know, percentage wise getting, exponentially more hypes than a larger content creator is. So I would hope that whoever the product manager is, whoever the software engineers are, your machine learning engineers, whoever your tech, the tech, the team that brought this hype to deployment, to production, that those were some of the requirements and the type of things that they thought about when they were implementing this type
Yeah.
of
And
program.
I'll just read it. I'll just read it. If you can make sense of it, you can make sense of it. The actual mechanism behind hype is pretty complicated. A video is only eligible to be hyped in the first 7 days after it's published. And of course, if it's made by a channel with fewer than 500,000 subscribers. So maybe that's the check mark right there.
Hmm.
Videos can only be hyped by pages or channels with fewer than 500,000 subscribers. Each user only gets 3 hypes per week, and each hype is worth a certain number of points that inversely correlates to how many subscribers a given channel has. The idea is that smaller channels should be able to hit the leaderboard too, so each hype to a smaller channel will be worth more points. YouTube is doing an awful lot of here to try to make sure the biggest channels don't just dominate the leaderboard. The 100 videos with the most total points hit the top of the leaderboard.
So it sounds like they did put some thought into it.
Hmm.
My only caveat with this is 500,000 subscribers is still a lot of subscribers.
It's still a lot,
It's still
right?
a
And
lot
there's
that most people don't have.
a
And
lot
there
of
are a
channels
lot of channels.
that fall under that category.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it were me, and I was responsible for bringing this, I would do a tiered approach. I would have, because you have like your micro influencers, your macro influencers, and your big times. I would, group them. So say you have subscribers from, 0 to 1,000, because
Mhm.
there are channels that have good content that have less than 1,000 subscribers.
Mhm.
And then maybe after the 1,000, maybe you jump. Maybe it's like 1,000 to 10,000. And then, maybe it's incremental bumps until you start. Once you get to, like, say, your 50,000, then you can start doing wider bands, because
Mhm.
at that point, it's only incremental. But I think, honestly, 500,000 subscribers is still going to leave out a lot of smaller content, because you're trying to say that having half a million subscribers is a small account.
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things of YouTube, sure, because there are people that have millions and millions of followers, tens of
Mhm.
millions. But when you think of YouTube as a whole, 500,000 is still too much.
Right. And you know what's going to happen? These smaller creators, they're trying to play the game. They're going to be like, all right, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you really want to help the channel, you got to make sure
Hype.
you throw me some hype up the channel. And they're going to have the little
Click the hype
ding and a
button
little,
here. Yeah.
this will be a little animation. I'm like, oh,
They're
why
just
can't we?
adding more to the intro and more
Yeah.
buttons for them to
And
point
more.
at. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I wish there was a way for just just good content to just rise to the top naturally. But if I can figure that out, then I'll be a quadrillionaire to
You'll
be able to
be the
license
new
this.
Jeff Bezos. You will
Right.
have all of the money, because that's the name of the game, right? You're
Right.
trying to get your content to the top. And there are people who have good content, but they just don't have that visibility. So
Yeah.
how do you get caught up in the thousands and hundreds of thousands of accounts that are on YouTube
Yeah.
to, whiffle through and find what you're looking for? It's a good effort. I
Yeah.
appreciate the thought and the effort behind it, because I think they, meaning YouTube, they are seeing the disparities between the different types of content creators. And it looks like this is their first foray into trying to reconcile that difference. I think they still have a lot of work to do. And if it were me, I see they have the hype, maybe have a
Mhm.
hype light where it focuses specifically on smaller content creators and not this
Mhm.
500,000 thing. Maybe give actual smaller content creators their
Sure.
own program. But,
And what
incremental
also
steps.
yeah, what also might happen is YouTube goes the way of Twitch, to where if I want to hype up a certain channel or a certain person, I gotta pay for the hypes
Mm,
and then give them out, to the to
yeah.
the to the creator, which may go directly into their pocket, or may help the algorithm boost them up a little bit more, but I
Yeah.
can see people faking that. So it's just a
Yeah.
mess. It's just a
It's a mess.
social media, content creation,
It's, yeah.
influence, monetization is a whole thing. And I don't think any one
Yeah.
platform is going to be able to figure this thing out,
Nope.
because it's crazy.
It is
All
so
right.
crazy.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for second string. We're going to move into for the culture. Like I mentioned at the top, Sean Diddy Combs was taken into federal custody in New York on Monday night and later indicted on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, which we kind of knew was coming down the pike in
Hmm.
the wake of this whole Cassie, undisclosed, settlement or whatever the case may be. And
Right.
in addition to that, just all the rumors
Yeah.
that we've heard over
For
the
years,
years as far as
decades.
the Diddy parties, right? But this indictment kind of sheds the light on these, what Diddy referred to them as, or what people referred to them that went to the parties, was freak offs, which is crazy. But
And now that's
the
in our lexicon.
Yep. The indictment states that these events, which often lasted several days,
Yeah.
allegedly involved Diddy distributing a quote, variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Additionally, Diddy is alleged to have kept videos of the victims engaged in these acts for potential blackmail. Further claims from the indictment indicate that searches of multiple properties owned by Diddy led to the seizure of the quote required freak off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, extra
Thousands.
linens, extra linens, lighting, and lubricant. Specifically, law enforcement agencies seized over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, narcotics, 3 AR-15s, and a drum magazine. Oh, the magazine clip. The drum magazine were also allegedly confiscated. Not necessarily saying that the guns were
No,
illegal,
they were
but that's
defaced. The serial
oh
numbers were
they
defaced.
oh they were never mind
Yeah.
then. Never
Yeah.
mind then. So it just again, like I said, we heard the rumors,
Mhm.
we've heard people tell the stories,
Mhm.
but this indictment sheds the light on how organized. That's the thing that stood out to me.
That's why
I
he got
I
these
just
RICO charges.
I assumed that Diddy was just known to throw dope parties. Those people in the parties, if y'all decided to do whatever,
If
is
y'all
whatever
want to
y'all
go up to the
decided to
3rd
do.
floor where the door
Right.
was closed, you had to consent to go in, then
And
yeah,
I just and I just assumed Diddy as the hostesses was like, hey, y'all come here, have a good time. You
whatever
can
kind
do
of good
whatever you
whatever good time means for
right.
you, we
I ain't
got
gonna
it.
I ain't gonna run my mouth. Nobody here's gonna run their mouth. You
Yeah.
free to do whatever, which is not unheard of, which is
Right.
why for the years we were like, oh, but Diddy's just throwing parties, right? He's throwing these. We've heard I'm not gonna name any other celebrities, but we've heard of
Mhm.
other celebrities taking part in some of these type deals, right? And we just
Mhm.
assume people come, they have a good time. Did he make sure that
Your
the,
privacy,
the
yeah.
scene is set, and then you go on about your business? No, that ain't the case. He was actually setting stuff
Trafficking.
up. In addition to the traffic, which is the most important part, because like we said, this thing quotes that he was drugging these
Mhm.
people in order to keep them compliant. So
For
when
days.
right, for days. And then I even saw somewhere to where I don't know if he still felt guilty about it because he would give them an
IVs.
IV to recoup or get over the hangover of being drugged for multiple days. So it's kind of like, I mean, honor amongst thieves, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, it's just amazing that these freak offs were so organized and so coordinated, and he kept all the tapes of the things that he recorded because he was either A, he was going to blackmail somebody, or B,
He
if
just
they came
enjoyed
at him
keeping it.
right, right. If somebody came at him sideways, he would have that and say, all right, are you sure you want to run your mouth? Because I got you on tape doing XYZ. Or like you said, number three, he was just
A freak.
nasty
A
like
deviant.
that.
I won't even say freak, I'll say deviant because some of the things that were described is straight up sexual predator,
Right.
sexual
Those
deviant,
parts, right. I wouldn't
psychotic stuff
yeah, now the things that he was doing against people's wills and drugging them in order to accomplish the environment. Yeah,
that he
that's
wanted.
deviant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would now if you consenting adults
Right.
like I assumed
But we
that
was
consenting
wrong.
adults, right? Consenting adults are coming to these parties and then going off and then doing whatever. To me, that ain't deviant. That's like y'all consenting, y'all adults, y'all feel like y'all in a safe space.
If y'all want
Go
to have an
handle your
orgy, go
business.
have at it. But
Right, right.
everybody who was in that said, yes, this is what I want to do. Or more importantly, if you were in there and you decided, you know what, this ain't for me, you can leave. They were even preventing people from
Mhm.
leaving.
Yeah.
So again, that's why he has what is 5 different charges, including RICO charges. And we all know
Mhm.
what RICO is. That's what Donald Trump got going on is a RICO charge, but it's organized crime. And in the indictment, I think is only like 16 pages. And I say only because usually indictments can be very long.
Mhm.
But they only, in the indictment, they gave examples of each of the things he was charged with. They were like, trust me, we got the stuff that says so much more than this, but we're just
Yeah.
going to give a little example of each of the things that he's done for each of these crimes. And the
Yeah.
fact that these crimes lead up to life in prison or death.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna ask. You think he's getting out of this
No.
with some jail time, maybe 8 to 10 years and going about his business
I
or
think it's gonna be like an R. Kelly type of situation because
Mhm.
I think once the feds get through with him,
Mhm.
if there's something left over, states are gonna come after him too,
Right,
right?
right,
So
and
I
individuals.
Right, individuals, some
Mhm.
guy who's in prison just won like 100 million judgment against him. Why? Because Diddy and his attorneys didn't show up to the court. So they award this guy $100 million and he's already in jail.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. But I say all this to say is the indictment only looks for it goes from today back to 2008.
Uh-huh.
We know Diddy has been in the game since the 90s.
Right,
So the only, I guess, sad part of it is people who are pre 2008, they may not necessarily get their day in court, but whatever
right.
happens to him, I guess will, kind of
Well,
give them some sort of relief.
w
But he's been doing this for a real long time. And like you said, we all thought this is, people being a freak, he's, bi, or they're just out here just having a good old time. And most people, I think, who are outside of the entertainment bubble assumed this is what people wanted to do. And if they didn't
mhm,
want to do it no more, then they just bounce. But
right.
this indictment and what's coming out, that's not the case. And I think particularly the what happened with Cassie. Everybody was talking about her, she knew what she was getting into, she wanted life, whatever. I think seeing that video of that girl being drugged down the hallway
Mhm,
of a
mhm,
hotel and getting stomped out, I think that flipped a switch to a lot of people because what we see is the party Diddy, the hey, let's keep the club going, let's keep the party going. I'm such a nice guy. I got all these kids. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to do vote or die. And he really had like this sinister, really type personality, but all we saw
mhm.
was a party guy. And I
Well,
think people seeing him in that video with her, I think it really allowed them to see what he was capable of. And a lot of these charges now and things that are coming out, I think people are more open to saying, yeah, this is
so
probably for real.
well, I think 2 things can be true.
Mhm.
I think Diddy can be a nice guy, and I think he can be concerned about politics
Most
and,
likely are
start
very personable,
organizations
have
and all that
charisma.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think he can do all that and also can be a freak, right?
Yeah,
It's just sad that he didn't compartmentalize the 2, and as a result, some of that stuff, which eventually does, you can say compartmentalize all you want to, but
eventually spills out.
it eventually spills over into other things, and that's what happened. He couldn't keep it copacetic on the freaky side. He had to involve other when you involve other people and you like you said,
Young
he's
girls, because
going
they were saying it was young girls and women. So
right, and
underage
he's
people are in this as well.
involving anybody else in your
Yeah.
stuff is eventually
Unconsenting. Now, if they consent to be involved in this, okay. To me, that's the freaky part. That's why people can say, "Oh, he's going to jail because he's a freak." I'm like, he's not going to jail because he's a freak. People can be freaky. They can do, I'm not going to kink shame anybody. Whatever you're willing to do or wanting to do is fine as long as you and the parties involved are consenting. To me, the freak side of things and the deviant side of things are different. And to me, he's on the deviant side of things. He can be a freak, but it's reading some of this stuff, it's just like, my God, let me go and listen to some babies laugh or look at some puppies or something because it was pretty intense. It was pretty horrific. Some of the stuff that, they were saying he was doing, it's just like, yikes on bikes.
yep. So yeah, he ain't going nowhere no time soon. He'd be
No,
sitting up
and the
there
fact
with
that they won't let him out of jail. Because a lot of times, especially with these Fed cases, the feds have all the stuff. But the fact that they won't give him bail and he put up a $50 million bail package, including the passports of all of his daughters,
Mhm,
one who's a baby, um, putting up his house. He went in anticipation. I saw this in anticipation of he knew what was coming down. He has like a $48 million home in Miami. It still had an $18 million mortgage. He paid off the mortgage before this so that he
mhm.
could put this $48 million home up for collateral. And then the surprising thing is the rest of that 50 million was like what 2 million left. He put his mother's home up
Mhm.
for the other. So he had 48 million in free and clear property that he owned. His mom's equity in her house was the other 2 million. He's already given up his passport. He gave up his mom's passport, his 3 daughters, his 4 daughters, including a baby, gave up their passports. The He signed the bond, his mom signed the bond, the mother of his oldest daughter signed the bond. So they gave this whole thing saying, look at all this stuff. I'll be confined to my home. I'll do all these things. And they said no. Then he came back and revised the bond deal and said, okay, you can drug test me every week. I will not have any female guests, all that stuff. And they were like, no, because the issue is, one, he's worth like $400 million. So $50 million to him ain't nothing. He could get, if he wants to leave the country, he could. Hello, Russell Simmons. The other thing is the state attorney said because they had the 3 AR-15s that weren't licensed and because of the weapons that they had, in addition to, he found out, because it's his legal right to know who his accusers are, he was intimidating witnesses.
Mhm.
So I think one of the girls from Dandy Kane, who was also in a group with him, she filed a lawsuit before all of this happened. And their other bandmate, she was like, "Oh, this isn't true. I don't believe this. I didn't see any of this stuff that she's saying." Come to find out, Diddy called this girl in one day 54 times. He was
Mhm.
incessantly like calling her. And apparently they have documentation of him intimidating witnesses. So they're saying not only is he a flight risk, but he
Mhm.
is a risk to the witnesses who
Mhm.
we are duty bound to protect with witness tampering and intimidation, because he blew up Kid Cudi's car because Kid Cudi said he thought Cassie was attractive or whatever, or he beat up Cassie because Cassie was talking to another manager or whatever. So all of these things, not just him being rich and can, flee the country, which I think he would have, because the attorney said, they were supposed to arrest him on Tuesday, but they moved up to Monday because of unstated circumstances. I personally think he was going to run, but that's
No, he
just
wasn't gonna run. He was gonna hide all the damn baby oil is what he was gonna do. Because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, if you did all this, why, if you knew they was coming, why didn't you clean up all that crap? Because it ain't take nothing but some maids and the cleaners and whomever to go
he has
scrub his
money.
apartment.
He can have they to
Yeah,
come do that. Yeah,
they push it up ahead to stop him from getting rid of some of that
destroying
evidence.
evidence. That
Mhm.
could be true as well. But
But
yeah,
but
so he's in
good luck.
jail.
Good luck to him.
The
Yep.
second judge won't give him bail, so Brody is probably had his last day outside with the free
All right.
world.
Well, of his own doing. All
On
right, so
doing.
that's going to do it for the culture. We're going to move into the hookup. Like I mentioned at the top, RCS is probably the main thing that everybody's been talking about as far as iOS update. This iOS update, which enables iPhone users and Android users to communicate over text and not be a mess that it is. So the hookup for this week is I wanted to, I don't know if it's necessary, but it makes sense. It made sense for me to go through and confirm that RCS was enabled in order to communicate with other Android users. And like I said, I have an Android device, so I, you know, put them side by side and did the test. And I did have to go through a couple things. So let me show you, let me walk through a couple things that I think you should walk through to confirm that RCS is enabled so you can take benefit of this new RCS, right?
Mhm.
So the first one is for iPhones. What I did was I confirmed that my carrier was RCS compatible. And the way you can do that is if you go to the iPhone settings, general, and then go to about, and then if you scroll down and tap the word carrier, it will reveal the RCS status. It'll say IMS, SMS, and RCS. So that is a good indicator that your carrier is enabled for RCS. So now you got to go down to the phone level and make sure RCS is enabled, which I think iOS 18 has it on by default. but it
Yeah,
don't
it
hurt to
does.
look.
It does.
So if you go to settings, apps, messages, and then go to RCS messaging, you should be able to enable that. Once you've got that done, I also think RCS is enabled by default on all Android devices, but I actually did some testing with some of my other Android folks, and when I go into their chats, it doesn't show RCS. So there may be some things you have to do on the Android side. And basically what you have to do is confirm that RCS is enabled on an Android by going to Google Messages and then tapping your profile pic and then going to Messages settings and then go to RCS chats and then enable RCS chats. Once you do that, then you can actually go through and enjoy all of the benefits of RCS. And let me just real quick as a highlighter, let me go back and go through some of these benefits. First one is the support for higher resolution photos and videos, support for larger file sizes while file sharing. You can send audio messages and receive audio messages, cross platform emoji reactions, real time typing indicators. Those are the bubbles. When somebody's typing a message, you can see that they're typing something, read receipts, and the ability to send messages over cellular or Wi Fi. So, those are all the highlight benefits of RCS. The only other drawbacks is if you're sending a RCS message to an Android user, they are not end-to-end encrypted. And I don't know if this is a benefit or a negative or not, but you're still going to get green bubbles if you're on an iPhone and you're messaging somebody from an Android. So that green blue bubble debate is still there, but I don't know how much
I
weight
don't
that
think people
holds.
care.
Now that RCS has some benefits, there's a couple things still Apple's holding close to the hip, like group video messaging. You still got to use FaceTime for that. So if you're trying to FaceTime with an Android user, you have to send them a link that they have to click on, and then they can open up in kind of like a web browser to be a part of the chat. But it's not going to be full video chat. You still got to rely on WhatsApp, specific video. Google Meet, it does a good one. Zoom is the most
Mhm.
popular one, but that's kind of confusing. Most people just want to do the FaceTime.
Yeah,
You still can only do that via Apple devices, which
yeah,
again makes sense. Apple's
yeah.
like, we ain't gonna give you everything.
We can't give you everything, and I have to
Right.
say it was, by default, and I didn't even realize that it was RCS until I started texting one of the few people that I have that use, Androids, and I saw when she was typing, I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
bubbles," and I was like, "Oh, duh, you're on iOS 18 and it has RCS enabled," and that's how it kinda clicked. But yeah,
Yeah.
it just started working for me.
Yeah, in some cases, like I said, on some, I can go into my messages right now and look at some of the messages or the conversations
Mhm,
that I've had with people with Androids.
mhm,
And whenever you can tell in like in the gray in the text window when you type,
mhm.
it'll tell you text message and RCS. But if I go to some of those messages for some of the people that I know have Androids, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say the
Gotcha.
RCS. So it leads me to believe that there may be something on an Android side that you have
They
to
have
do
to
as
do.
well to make sure they have SMS or RCS
RCS,
enabled.
yeah.
Maybe it's using Google Messages as opposed to the built-in messages app for your Android. So if you've got a Samsung, you can't use Samsung messages. Got to use Google Messages.
Gotcha.
If you got an HTC, or you've got a Huawei, or you've got a Nothing, or you've got a what's the other one? OnePlus. So OnePlus is a popular Android device.
Okay.
Nothing is an Android. You can't use their built-in messages app. You got to use Google Messages, and then
Mm.
I think that will fire off the automatic RCS enablement as well. So that's my hookup for the week. There are some steps you may have to take, but definitely if you have iOS 18, check out the RCS messaging and let us know what you think.
Yep. It was pretty interesting to me.
All right. All right. If you don't have anything else, Nika, that is going to do it for this week's show. Tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me at Brother Tech on all platforms. That's BROTHATECH to catch up with the show, to follow us on social, to listen to the latest episode. Please go to our website. That is snoboscast.com to get all those details. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.